I posted my first video to YouTube back in July of 2009 when I was only 12 years old. Since then, I've had a bunch of different YouTube channels in all shapes and styles, from LEGO reviews to Minecraft commentaries to skateboarding vlogs to music videos. Every time though, it was the same cycle. I had a new great idea, I got super excited, posted for a while, and then I got burnt out from overthinking after about 10 or 15 videos. I've tried everything under the sun and I've failed a lot over the years, so I wanted to share the most important things I've learned to hopefully help some of you out there that want to get into this too. Number one, not only do you need to enjoy making videos, but you need to enjoy the journey of making videos. I feel like a lot of people go through this thing where they start a new channel and they make a bunch of videos, and then after about 3 to 6 months they get pretty burnt out on it because they realize how much hard work it actually is, and that a lot of the time you're not just filming videos, you're writing scripts, you're posting to social media, you're editing a lot, and some of those other activities unrelated to the actual act of filming yourself talk can sometimes burn people out because they don't realize how long it actually takes. And part of being a YouTuber is not just being a cameraman or a filmer. You're basically, you know, a filmer, an editor, you're a graphic designer, you're a social media optimizer, you're a bunch of different things, and you have to wear a bunch of different belts while you do this. And I think sometimes that can smack people in the face when they first get started. If you're not actually passionate about the creation process of videos and everything that comes with it, then you're eventually going to get burnt out, so I would make sure that you really like the process before you get into this. Number two, do not overthink everything. And if you do overthink a lot, make sure you're creating and executing just as much or more than you are overthinking. Sometimes creators will get stuck in this rut where they basically will keep overthinking different things they're doing and trying to come up with better ideas, and they're laying in bed at night wondering like, oh, is this video gonna do well? Is this idea even good? Like second guessing themselves and stuff like that. And it's, you know, important to have self-reflection, but at the same time, you should also be executing and realize that the more you execute, the better you'll get at it, and eventually, you know, it gets to a certain point where overthinking is just counterproductive. If you let the overthinking and anxieties get out of control, then you'll end up in this state where you end up overthinking so much that you're not actually getting anything done anymore, and I've definitely been a victim of this many times. Number three, every trend will die. If you want to have longevity, you need to create evergreen content. Now, what I mean by evergreen content, for those of you who don't know what that means, it's basically when you create a video that has a timelessness aspect to it. So if you make like a tutorial video, or, you know, a video about how to do something, or a comprehensive analysis on a certain topic, a lot of the times those things won't, you know, lose their longevity over the years. They'll still be relevant in 5 or 10 years. And the thing with trends, for example, if you know, do a video on a new TikTok dance, or you do a video on a recent news story, eventually that trend is going to taper off and die out after a few months. And so for those who are getting started out trying to figure out what content they want to make, I would try and avoid trends as much as possible. Trends can be utilized as a really good tool later down the line, but you don't want to rely on trends because it's very hard to cut through when so many other people are doing it as well, and you also kind of lose that backbone that you're building for your channel. So if you have like a bunch of longevity based evergreen content, then, you know, after 5 years of making hundreds of videos, you still have a ton of videos raking in views all the time. Whereas if you only do trendy videos, then only your most recent few videos will be actually doing the work of your channel. So hopefully that makes sense. Just remember, every trend will die. Number four, figure out your end goal early. Are you doing this as a personal venture, or are you doing this to start a business? I think it's really important when you're starting out to have a specific goal in mind of where you want to take this channel over the years. I think that if you don't have this, you can sometimes get sidetracked with what your actual goals and purposes are with this channel. And I think it's completely okay to choose either one of these. You can have YouTube just be your side hustle or your hobby on the side, or you can treat it as a business where you're going to grow it over time and have it be your either main source of income or the main thing that you do with your life. I think having your end goal or purpose in mind really helps you lay down the correct foundation when you're getting started. So for example, if you're just doing this as a side hobby, then you might not need to take it as serious. You might not need to be as specific with choosing a niche. You could be a little all over the place with your content at first. Whereas if you're starting out with the end goal of being a business, you know, you'll want to pay attention to the logos you're making and the persona that you provide on film. You can make content that kind of works your way up to a bigger business plan over time, for example, selling a course or something like that. And this leads perfectly into number five, which is to have an image or brand in mind as well. So when you first get started with this channel and you make your first few videos, you should really sit down and think about, okay, where do I want to be in 5 years, and what do I want to look like as a brand or a business, if that's where you're going with it. For example, how personal do you want to get with things? How much of your private life do you want to share on camera? that? How professional do you want it to be? Do you want to be like a character that's on camera that has a really specific professional display? Or do you want to be a lot more casual and connect with your audience a little more? Do you want to give people a glimpse into your personal life, or do you want to keep that a little more private for the sake of business and professionalism? Once again, these things are really important to keep in mind. That way you can stay focused and you'll be on a very specific trajectory that you've set yourself. That way you don't get distracted as you move along. Number 6, everybody hates intros. I know, maybe you have a really cool intro that you love to use. Maybe you spent money getting this created, but I'm telling you, please don't do the intro stuff with your channel. The first 5 to 30 seconds of your video is supposed to grab the attention of the viewer, and I promise you, your fancy intro is not doing that for anybody. I don't know if any of y'all can relate to this, but if you've ever gotten kind of addicted to watching a new channel that has an intro, you know, you get to a point after a while where you end up skipping it almost every time. Same goes with TV shows. If you're watching your favorite TV show, eventually you're gonna get kind of burnt out on watching the same 2-minute intro every time you want to watch a new episode, and YouTube is the exact same way. No one really cares. No one wants to see your intro. People clicked on the video because there was a certain expectation in mind, and they want you to deliver on that expectation immediately. Now, once your channel is super big and you have a big loyal following, you can maybe mess around with some intro concepts that are like 2 or 3 seconds long. And my best example of this is the Think Media channel. They have an intro that's literally less than 2 seconds long, and all it is like one moving image, and then the guy in the background is like, "You just gotta press record."
You gotta just press record.
Hey, what's up?
And that's literally all it is. People don't care about your fancy intro with your giant logo or YouTube name floating around and exploding and all that. Just stop doing that, focus on creating the content and getting into the meat of your video as soon as possible. Number 7, everybody hates being pushed to buy things unless it provides value. This kind of ties back into the intro thing as far as attention span goes, but if you're going to try and shill one of your products or someone else's products at the end of your video or in the middle of it, just make sure that it's something that's genuinely providing value to the specific types of people that are actually watching your content. So for example, if I'm making a personal finance or invested related video, and halfway through the video I start selling you on some protein powder that I like to use, most likely the people watching my video are the least likely to be accepting of that promotion and be interested in that. Whereas if I was promoting like a new credit card or a new savings account, maybe that would kind of, you know, hit the mark a little bit better. And at the same time, when you're pitching these different sales or, you know, things that you want people to buy or support you on, not only do they need to provide value, but you need to kind of like mask the fact that you're selling it, if that makes sense. Because nobody really likes being pushed to buy things. Everyone hates experiencing really obvious sales tactics from people. I don't know if you've ever walked through the mall and those people that sit in the center of the mall try to like pull you aside and get you to buy certain things.
Nah, I'm good. Nah, I'm good. First aid good, bro. I'm good. Look at your shoes, bro. My feet is good, bro.
And it's the most annoying thing ever, so please avoid doing this in your YouTube videos because it has the same effect on people. If you do have something to sell, eventually the best strategy for this is to filter out all the people who might not be interested, and then have a really good sales pitch at the end of your video, or maybe on a different like web page or something like that, that really focuses in on like the exact types of people that are going to buy it. That way you're not alienating people and making it to where your channel is just trying to sell things rather than actually provide value to people. So to add further to this idea, at the end of the day, nobody cares about your merch, no one cares about your Patreon, no one cares about your course, unless they're absolutely in love with you. And, you know, make these things available, don't just like hide them behind the scenes. But if you're going to push these things, just be aware that it's usually annoying to most people. And if you're just trying to sell your t-shirts and hats every video, it's gonna come across like you're just there to make money and not actually help people or entertain people. And this leads perfectly into number 8, and that is you need to provide value to your audience, and no one cares about your vlogs. Just kidding, I used to make vlogs too, but at the end of the day, you need to provide value to your audience somehow, whether that's with education or entertainment. If you are a channel that does want to start out with vlogs, and by no means am I hating against vloggers, just realize that it's very hard to cut through and blow up your channel using vlogs. You have to be either a really entertaining or interesting person, or you have to be doing something super unique that no one's ever done before. And these things can work, it just usually takes a lot longer than if you have a more focused channel, because at the end of the day, vlogs are just showing off a lot of your personal life, and everybody else watching YouTube has their own personal life going on for them. And so, you know, you have to ask yourself, what makes people want to watch yours? I think if you're someone who does want to make vlogs, a really strategic way you can go about doing this is figure out what your main like hobbies or passions are in your life, and the things that you do want to provide value to your audience with, and try to incorporate those into your vlog somehow. So for example, my friend Steven, he does skate vlogs, and they're not just like vlogs where he's recording everything he's doing with his day. His primary goal is to inspire people to get better at skating and to teach people skating and to, enjoy time spent with friends and just kind of document it along the way and not take it super seriously. If you're making things that are not vlogs, like educational or entertainment content, you need to really have it dialed in what the purpose of each individual video is. So if you're making a video teaching people about credit cards, you should have, a theme that you write down before you even get started with the video that says like, at the end of the video, I want my audience to feel like this, or feel like this problem has been solved. There always needs to be a really core idea to each video, otherwise you're going to, lose your train of thought. You're going to be bouncing all over the place with your ideas and what you're talking about, and you need to just really remind yourself, like, how is this actually benefiting people? Number 9, consistency is better than quality, but quality is better than quantity. So what do I mean by this? Basically, by consistency is better than quality, what I'm saying is when you're first starting out your channel, it is a lot more important and impactful to be consistent than to be focused on making the perfect video, because this will lead into the overthinking problem that I mentioned earlier. And it's a lot more important for your audience to expect something of you on a regular basis, because it shows that you're actively producing content. And this is why in the beginning consistency is far more important, but on the other hand, quality is far more important than quantity. So even though you're being consistent, if you're just spamming a bunch of really low quality videos out on a daily basis or a weekly basis, that is going to be counterproductive to the consistency aspect, and there's no amount of consistency that's going to cut through that noise. So if you're just spamming a bunch of videos out, you need to really start to focus on the actual quality of them. Now, they don't have to be perfect videos, but I hope you guys can kind of see what I'm saying with this. In the beginning, consistency is a lot better to focus on, and then once you have become consistent and you start to have a catalog of videos and you got the ball rolling a little bit, then you can start to focus on upping the quality, and that should be your primary focus. Not only quality of visuals and audio, but quality of the actual value and the ideas that you're providing. If you don't have consistency and you don't have quality, there is no quantity that'll ever get you anywhere on YouTube, I promise. Number 10, you don't need a bunch of gear to make good videos, but everybody hates bad audio. I think a lot of beginner YouTubers fall into this thing where they start to make videos and they start to learn a little bit more about what people expect with, content and lighting and audio and things like that, and they realize that there's this kind of never-ending black hole of gear that you can get invested into and buy. And there's a lot of recommendation videos out there. It's really easy to get sucked into the state of mind of like, oh, I just need XYZ to make better videos, or I just need a better camera or a better lens or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, as long as you have good audio, you can use whatever you want. Every smartphone out there right now shoots in HD, and that is fine. Every phone out there shoots in 24 to 60 frames per second. Anything in that range is fine. As long as your audio isn't complete garbage, people aren't really going to care about the rest of the stuff. Now, I think after audio, you need to focus on lighting as the next most important step. So if you're just using your iPhone, try to get like one of those lavalier microphones, or a microphone like I have right in front of me that's, 50 to $100. And then after that, you can start to focus on lighting, which honestly, as long as your lighting doesn't look like garbage either, it's not really that big of a deal. But it's incredibly inexpensive to go get a little ring light from Best Buy or something like that, and that'll do you plenty for the foreseeable future. I promise you, getting all this better gear is not going to magically make you better at making videos. You should be focusing on the quality and the value you're providing to your audience, and then when you find yourself in a position where you actually need that new gear, then you can start to invest into that as well. Something that's happened to me in the past to kind of shed light on how this can become a bigger issue is I'll go out and buy a bunch of gear for my new channel that I'm starting, for example, and then once I get burnt out on that channel 6 months later, I have a bunch of gear that I no longer need anymore, and so I just wasted a bunch of money on stuff. And at the same time, you might even buy gear for your current channel, and your current channel is still going strong, but you realize you don't need that gear as much as you thought when you bought it, and so it ends up just collecting dust, or it's hard to sell or something. And so I think you should be very intentional about the gear that you decide to buy, and realize that being completely minimal about gear is totally fine. But please, fix your audio. Number 11, finding a niche isn't important. Your niche will find you. I swear there is 10,000 videos on YouTube about, the key to YouTube success. Step 1, find your niche. And I promise you, you guys do not need to find a niche in the beginning. Your niche will find you over time as you create content, and in the beginning, it is much more important for you to just be consistent, get better at making videos, get better at editing, get better at writing scripts, and try to keep your stuff like generally in the same categories. Like, you don't want to be making video blogs and then making like educational tutorials, but you can kind of, experiment with stuff as well. Like your first 100 videos, it really doesn't matter what you upload. The point of this in the beginning is to figure out what you like to do, what your audience likes, and then figuring out a good workflow and system for you to output content on a regular basis. After you do this for a long enough time, your niche will eventually find you and your audience will naturally find you. And you can kind of use what you like to do and what actually is working and combine those two together, and that will basically become your niche. It's important in the beginning to not put yourself inside a tiny little box when you're making content, because at this point, like I said, you're supposed to be experimenting and just creating a bunch of stuff. And if you put yourself into a box, you might end up in that overthinking thing like I was talking about once again, and then you won't actually produce content. And this leads perfectly into number 12, which is if you're having trouble starting, just document your passions. Now, this is something that Gary Vee has talked about in a lot of his videos before.
I post 3 or 4 times a day documenting what they're doing, eating this lunch, taking my kid to school, this is who my uncle is. So they started documenting instead of like, ooh, let me make a video about like how the sun comes up, or like instead of creating something, you just document your actual life. So many of you should be documenting your journey of becoming an intern, of moving from college to the real life, going through your divorce, starting your new business. If you document your truth.
People are having issues with like, oh, I'm not good at filming, I'm not good at scripting, I don't know what to do for my videos, my life isn't that interesting. But at the end of the day, everybody has stuff that they like to do. Everybody has hobbies, everybody has, at least a talent or something that they're good at. And if you don't know where to begin, but you want to do YouTube stuff, just document your passions somehow. So film yourself doing the things you love. If you like hikes, film yourself on hikes. If you like building Legos, film yourself building Legos. And over time, you'll start to realize like what you actually like to make and what you want to make videos on moving forward. A lot of people get success online not even having to find a niche. They end up documenting their passions for such a long time that them actually documenting their passions ends up being the thing that gets them paid. So rather than looking at it as creating content, look at it as I'm documenting my passions. Number 13, create systems, take notes, make lists, and have workflows. This is one part of being a YouTuber that often gets overlooked, especially by people when they're first starting out, and I know people that even have massive channels that still don't have this stuff dialed in, but it really slows you down and prevents you from spending the most amount of your time possible actually making content. And what I'm talking about is when you're making videos and you're getting better at it and stuff, you should be taking notes and creating better workflows and having like a systematic approach to things. That way you're not just all over the place, and you can stay organized when you're making videos, you can edit a lot faster, you don't lose footage. There's a million different benefits to this, and kind of the idea here is to develop systems that are actually tangible and like written down somewhere. That way if you ever had to like teach a employee in the future how to help you out with a certain part of your process, you can, give them a thing that's written out and have them copy it and have their output be exactly what you would want it to be. Like for example, in this journal right here, I have my complete step-by-step process on how I edit and film all of my videos. It has everything from the steps to take in the video timeline to the brightness of these lights right here and the white balance of them, how far my camera is zoomed in, the exact positioning on the floor of my other lights in the back right here, all those like little silly details. Eventually you're not going to really remember them, especially if you go multiple weeks without making a video. And I think that if you write these things down and just create systems and workflows and take a lot of notes about your stuff, it'll help you out a lot in the future with efficiency, and you can focus a lot less on remembering all those little details and a lot more on better ideas, better content, and better value. Number 14, editing is obviously really important, but over-editing is a complete waste of your talent. Basically what I'm saying here is you can completely be successful on YouTube without ever editing a single video, depending on how you film it. There's plenty of people out there that all they do is film themselves talking to the camera just like this, and they do barely any editing at all except for maybe captions or transitions, and they upload it, and it takes them almost no time at all to edit a video and get it up on the internet. And I think sometimes early YouTubers can get stuck in this state where they feel like guilty, or they almost feel like their video isn't good enough if it's not edited, and then they'll spend way more time editing the video than the actual ideation or the value providing aspect of it. And now editing obviously can increase your engagement a lot, it can increase the entertainment, it can make your stuff look really professional, but you have to strike a balance between checking those boxes and wasting a lot of time over editing, where you're just, you know, going over the same things over and over, or you're spending 25 hours editing one 10-second part of your video, because at the end of the day, most people are only going to watch your video once or twice, if they even watch all the way through. And so you're putting in a lot of this energy that might not even be seen by the vast majority of people. And so when you're doing your editing, ask yourself, am I doing this just to like look cool, or am I doing this to actually increase engagement and provide more value? And on top of this, obviously the time you spend editing dramatically can increase or decrease the amount of output you have. And so if you're someone who wants to upload every couple days or twice a week or even once a week, but you have a huge problem with over editing, then uploading once a week becomes almost impossible. And that's why you see channels that make documentary style videos only upload a couple of times a year, is because those videos take so long to produce that they can't possibly make those videos more often than that. Whereas you look at other channels like me, Kevin, which is a personal finance YouTuber, he sometimes is uploading 3 to 5 videos a day, and that's because he's literally editing them as he's shooting them with a little stream switcher, which is kind of what I have here, and then he could just immediately upload those to the internet. And this is because the value he's providing is in the information that he's giving out. It's not in the way the information is presented. Number 15, you will gain fans through a connection. Now, I know that there's thousands of videos out there like the one you're going to make, but the reason why people are watching yours is because it's you, as long as you're providing value. I think sometimes a lot of creators can get stuck and ask themselves, like, why do people want to watch mine when there's a bunch of videos out there already like this? Or how are my ideas original when they're just inspired by a bunch of other people? But at the end of the day, you got to figure out, like, what are you going to bring to the table with it? And your personality and your presentation style has a lot to do with that. I'm sure all of you can think of examples within your own life, but if you watch a lot of YouTube, I'm sure that there's people you're fans of that it's not necessarily even like the videos they're making, it's like you just like watching them because they're funny, or like they have a certain twist or style on things that you really like. So if you can create that for yourself, then even if the content's been done 1,000 times, then you don't need to worry about growing a fan base or not. It's going to come to you eventually. You just gotta make that connection with people. And honestly, this goes for any other hobby or talent out there, not just YouTube. So if you're like a musician or trying to get into some professional sport or something like that, basically what I'm saying is there's a fan base for everybody. You just got to find it and put in the work to find it. So the final word and the final thought that I want to say in this video is you will make it as long as you consistently provide value. So whenever you're questioning yourself, just remember this phrase: consistently provide value and you will be fine. Now before y'all go, remember to subscribe with that big fat red button down below. If you want to see my latest video, be sure to click it right up here. Check out the description for some important links, and with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.